Coming up on this week's episode of Waiver Watch, episode 40, we will talk about high altitude waivers and tactical BVLOS. This is going to be a good one. If you want to stick around and find out more, stay tuned for this week's episode. If you want to do like a fun cut like boop, and as always, weekly waiver totals. Welcome to this week's episode of Waiver Watch, episode 40 on August 23rd, 2020. Jakey, without further ado, hit us with the weekly waiver totals.
All right. So this week, we are back to our low numbers, 13 waivers.
That is an unlucky number, you know?
I know. They're consistent on it, though.
The Tower of Terror has 13 floors, I do believe.
The Tower of Terror. Yeah, it's. I think we had a couple good weeks, but then it was about 4 weeks ago. We had like back-to-back weeks of 13, so I don't know what it is about 13, but
it's just nice, easy, low number, I guess.
Yeah.
Nothing like last year's, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and part of it might have been the UAS symposium this week. They didn't update the waiver table very much, so maybe on Monday we'll see a kind of a backlog get uploaded, and maybe we'll have some new numbers. But
what about all the virtual learning for all the students now, the children that have not gone back to school but are going to school in their living room? This might impact waiver approvals.
Right. So let's see. Yeah, it was 12 night waivers, 1 high altitude, and kind of a spread around the country. Nothing, no concentrations anywhere really. But probably the interesting tidbit of the week is that we're starting to see people renew their night waivers. There was one of them this week. There's usually, seems like one of them every week now at least, where people are going in and starting to renew those. Basically the first people that were getting them back in 2016, they're coming up on expiration here. So
isn't that crazy that it's been about 4 years since? Let's really call it the easy street to getting waivers, and outside of 323, like it's only been 4 years, and it's gone by quick though.
Yeah.
So
4 years and still no night rules.
Oh, zing!
Oh, but yeah, there's been other good stuff though.
Yeah, but tactical BVLOS coming up in the back end of the episode, so we'll be okay with it. One. Yeah. So let's kick it over to
altitude waiver. Yeah,
go ahead. Let's kick it over to number 2, waiver number 2020-0273. 8er. I was going to go 9er, but it's an 8er. All right. Richard Crosman has this high altitude waiver up to 700 feet AGL, 1 nautical mile from the San Manuel Airport. Kick us off. Let us know what Richard Crosman is doing. What does he do? Where does he work?
So he is the senior vice president at the Genesis Consulting Group, LLC. They're a kind of a maybe just a specialty consulting firm with airport and aviation projects. Their website has a whole slew of things that they do, but it appears, a little bit of digging around, it appears that there's some construction work going on at this airport. So perhaps Mr. Crosman here is just doing some survey work or something, wanted a little extra altitude to help do that. So
if you jump over their website, you'll notice that he is listed right on the front page there as senior vice president, and he's in Utah, and it looks like they have a very nice runway, probably a resurfacing project. I see a big X at the end of the runway. But yeah, interesting enough, right, to fly high altitudes close to airports. You can do it safely. Certainly.
The airport, it could be closed, I guess. But I actually found, so if you, a little bit of digging, I actually found like the bid published on the website. So they're doing, at least as long as this is the right one that I found that he's supporting, they're doing like obstruction removal, some fencing work, changing out the lights for LEDs. So kind of interesting.
I'll throw in a tidbit: airport operations.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, I've been operating at an private airport, for the past 7 days now straight. We're doing operations all day, and we do have lots of manned traffic coming in and out. But we can successfully integrate within the NAS with these pilots. So I've also noticed there's a lot of student pilots coming in. One of them has mistakenly called the wrong direction of the runway he was landing on during approach, which is interesting. So this is like a safety moment. He called 2 mile final and called the wrong runway. So one would anticipate him coming from the other direction, but in fact he landed backwards. But either way, what is nice is I have a handheld aviation radio on, and it is very, very nice when pilots make radio calls when they're coming into the airport, because I know exactly where they are, and I turn my head and I hear them on the radio before I can even hear the motors, the engine on the airplanes. So you can safely operate very close to active runways as long as everyone's communicating, and we have the duty to yield to manned aircraft. So just had a lot of experience with that this week. We've definitely held a couple of times when people have been doing touch and goes and practicing their takeoff and landings, but everything has been good so far. So not impacting manned aviation. So this is good. So
excellent.
Yeah, I think without further ado, we probably should get to tactical BVLOS, because I think this is actually pretty cool. So number 3, public safety and tactical BVLOS. Jakey, I will just start right from the top with you, and I won't go any farther into my ramblings. So.
All right. So this week they had round 2 of the UAS Symposium. If you attended that virtually. And at it, they announced this tactical BVLOS concept, which is actually pretty novel. So you may have heard about some of the work that Chula Vista is doing, both with their drone as a first responder, and then lately they've been kind of working with Skydio on this kind of low altitude tactical BVLOS type of thing. And they announced this waiver that Chula Vista got like the first round of UAS Symposium. I remember that was kind of their big news. So the second round, they released guidance basically for everybody else to get it. Well, first responders, all the other first responders, which is really cool. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, where they basically just put out a flyer saying, here's exactly how to get BVLOS. So that's really good to see. So Brent, do you want to just hit a couple of kind of the provisions that you could expect out of this type of approval, and then I can follow up with how to get one?
For sure. Yeah. So tactical BVLOS, first glance, you may be thinking, okay, 5 miles, let's shoot it downrange 5 miles with our Mavics. That is not what tactical BVLOS is. It is very, I would say the FAA probably learned a lot from Chula Vista, and they thought about how can we approach providing like, I can't remember the exact words, but you know how you can lose temporary line of sight for brief moments of time or something like that. I can't remember the exact words in the regs, but this is like an extension of that, where they've actually kind of defined in tactical BVLOS what your limitations are. So number 1, the biggest thing is, how far is this BVLOS? This is only 1,500 feet in length from the pick. So by many stretches, if you were flying with no obstructions in your way, this is well within line of sight. But let's just say there's a building, and in the picture that the FAA has depicted, there's a fire on some high-rise buildings, and they're showing that you're flying the drone. So assuming that you're probably flying behind this building. And this is one thing I started thinking about, is usually when you put a thing between you and your radio and your drone, you begin to have some breakup in your signal. But I started to think about the distance, that DJI is pretty good, and other drones are good, but like you can shoot 2.4 through definitely a house on the other side. Now, if you're, downtown in a metropolis and you're shooting through a skyscraper, there's gonna be some challenges here. But so just want to think about that, is that you do have to think about the risk when you're flying behind an object. And I would say the risk is more along the line of losing link. Obviously, aircraft shouldn't be below the roofs of these buildings or skyscrapers or whatever. And when I say skyscrapers, they better not go over 400 feet because that is the hard ceiling for the BVLOS operations, the tactical BVLOS. You can't go any higher than that. And also you may not operate more than 50 feet above the structure's uppermost limit. So they're really using infrastructure shadowing, buildings, trees, objects trees terrain, actually.
That is a great question. We should make that an episode next week because I actually have like a really good head scratcher. So save that thought for next week.
Say that thought, erase that. I didn't say it, but it's funny how my mind went there. Okay, so anyways, that's just kind of the high level things here. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about?
I'll kind of add in like one other concept. So there's a concept maybe where you have to fly like behind an obstruction briefly, but there's also a concept where first responders, sometimes perhaps their own life is in a threatening situation. And that's one caveat here too. There has to be, this has to be like an extreme emergency situation, essentially like somebody's life is in danger, could be the officer's life, could be somebody else. But there's also this concept where you as the officer don't want to just rush into something. And so you can deploy this aircraft, say from like the street, and maybe check over a fence or around a corner or something like that. So you don't have to be standing, looking over the fence to see your aircraft, right? You can just kind of fly it in there, do a quick check, fly it back out. Right. So there's a lot of, I think, different uses. And while you were talking, I was measuring. So 1,500 feet doesn't sound like a lot, but in like residential areas, that's like 5 blocks.
Okay.
So
that's a good safe standoff distance.
That's like
from a scene,
pretty
right?
far. You just zoom down the street like 5 blocks. I mean, that's maybe in the city it's like 2, a couple city blocks, but it's pretty good. Right. Sounds small, but it's good. So, so how do you get one of these? Maybe we'll
that's probably the good one, right? Yeah. Talk about maybe some of your experience too, Jakey.
Yeah.
Why might you be qualified to talk about this?
Yeah. So I work with the local public safety team here. It's a regional unit. I've been working with them for a number of years, both as a pilot and now just kind of a trainer, safety SME. And this is not a drone zone waiver. So that's kind of one big difference here. First, you do have to get a COA, like a public agency COA. And then this request actually has to go through a totally different process. It's called a 91-113 waiver. And so you're operating under 91, not 107. So that's kind of a big difference. You still have to put together a safety case, kind of like you would with a waiver. That's pretty similar. So you put together how you're going to operate, maybe what aircraft, what location, and then you have to submit this package into an email address, essentially. And then they'll work with you via email to get it approved. Once you do, you have to submit a CAPS application. That's the COA processing system. And then you receive your COA. So a little different process, but we do have experience with these. So if you're interested in learning more, you can definitely shoot us a note.
Yeah, certainly, by all means, right? Jake is well versed. We're definitely super confident in assisting any public agencies that want this. Feel free to reach out to us. It's not really, I wouldn't say it's a painful process. These things can kind of go in pretty quickly and be approved quite rapidly versus a traditional drone zone waiver application that may get lost on a desk somewhere and take months to be approved.
Wonder how we know that.
Yeah. So wouldn't you say that this is a little bit more personal application process? You might be having a little bit more upfront interactions with people, right? Rather than
you actually email somebody, and there is somebody on the other end that receives it and processes
not
it.
Not that there aren't people on the other end of drone zone, but it's very little interactions, right? If you submit your drone zones applications correctly, you just get approved. If you don't, you get denied. With the COA process, right? You might be able to call up somebody and say, hey, we're really scratching our head on this one. And And, certainly we can alleviate those problems too as well, and be kind of a force multiplier for the FAA so that you submit your application right the first time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And like I said before, it is like very rare for the FAA to actually put guidance out like this. So it does seem like they're kind of open for business on this. They're telling first responders, this is here's how you get it. So
maybe the between Chula Vista, first responders pressing harder for, we have this amazing technology and we can operate safely. That's why these restrictions are so tight, because when you impose those, it's, relatively safe, right? You don't expect a manned aircraft, even like a helicopter life flight coming in. It should be pretty good. So.
Yeah. Well, that's actually another great point that you reminded me of. So this might also be one of the first times, maybe not the first, but one of the first times where the FAA has actually looked at the bigger risk and sort of evaluated holistically the whole thing. So, what's worse, somebody dying because of this life-threatening situation, or an aircraft flying 50 feet above a building? It's if you look at the big picture, there's bigger risks than just a little drone flying through some buildings. So it's good to see them kind of look at the big picture and maybe weigh the lesser of two evils, so to speak, even though drones are very safe. We all know that, but yeah, interesting.
So good. Yeah. Super excited about this one. Feel free to message us in our email, info@107waivers.com. If you have any questions, if you'd like us to start on your tactical BVLOS application, let us know. We'll certainly be there to help you. Anything else you want to add before we close it out until next week?
We'll wrap it up there. That's a good point.
All right. So as always, take care, guys and gals.
Fly safe.